My name is Mara Hart, and I am 63 years old. I have silver hair that catches light like spun silk, pearls that rest against my throat like promises, and hands that have signed divorce papers worth millions. I am telling you this story not for sympathy, but because some truths deserve to be carved into stone. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say it's best served precisely, methodically, and without a trace of remorse. My daughter Sarah lies in room 314 of St. Mary's Hospital, her pale hands folded over white sheets like broken bird wings. She's 35 years old, beautiful in that fragile way that makes people want to protect her. Her husband Jason sits beside her bed sometimes, holding her hand and whispering sweet lies about forever. When I watch him, I see a man who believes his own performance. I raised Sarah to believe in fairy tales. Perhaps that was my first mistake. Jason Matthews is 38, with the kind of charm that opens doors and empties bank accounts. He married my daughter 7 years ago in a ceremony that cost more than most people's homes. I walked her down the aisle because her father, my late husband, had already taught her that men could disappear when you needed them most. But I stayed. I always stay. Sarah's illness came suddenly 6 months ago. The doctors use words like autoimmune and chronic, but what they mean is that my daughter's body has turned against itself. She spends 3 days a week in this hospital bed, receiving treatments that leave her exhausted and hopeful in equal measure. Jason's absences began around the same time. "Mom, he's just working extra hours to pay for the medical bills," Sarah told me last week, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded and smoothed her hair, the way I had when she was 7 and believed monsters only lived under beds. I've learned that the most dangerous monsters wear wedding rings. This morning, I offered to clean Sarah's car while she slept. It's a small kindness. Her silver BMW needs attention, and I need something to occupy my hands while my mind works. Jason handed me the keys, without looking up from his phone. "Thanks, Mara," he said, already typing another message to someone who wasn't my daughter. The car smells like Sarah's lavender perfume and something else, something cheaper, younger, desperate. I run my fingers along the seats, checking for evidence of a life my daughter doesn't know she's living. In the glove compartment, beneath insurance papers and breath mints, my fingers find it. A small tube of personal lubricant, still sealed, expensive brand. I hold it in my palm and feel something cold settle in my chest. Sarah hasn't been intimate with anyone in months. Her treatments leave her too tired, too fragile. This isn't for her. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I've cross-examined murderers and negotiated million-dollar settlements. I know evidence when I see it, and I know guilt when it sits heavy in my palm like a loaded weapon. Jason Matthews is planning to bring someone else into my daughter's car. Into her space. Into her life. The tube goes into my purse, and I finish cleaning the car in silence. When I return to the hospital, Sarah is awake, trying to sip water through a straw. Her lips are dry and cracked from medication, but she smiles when she sees me. "How did the car look?" she asks. "Perfect," I tell her. "Just like you raised it to be." Jason appears in the doorway with coffee and apologies. "Sorry, babe. Conference call ran long." He kisses Sarah's forehead with the practiced tenderness of a man who has learned to perform love on schedule. I watch him over my daughter's head, and something passes between us. Recognition, maybe. He knows that I know, and I know that he doesn't care. That evening, I drive to the hardware store. The clerk is helpful, a young man with earnest eyes who explains the different types of industrial adhesive with enthusiasm. I buy the strongest one, the kind used for metal and ceramics, the kind that creates bonds meant to last forever. At home, I work carefully. The original tube and the adhesive tube are similar enough in size and texture. I transfer the contents with surgical precision, using tools from my late husband's workshop. The weight feels right, the consistency perfect. I reseal the tube with heat, just enough to make it look factory fresh. My hands don't shake. They haven't shaken since I was 23 and argued my first case in front of a jury who thought women belonged in kitchens, not courtrooms. Tomorrow, I will return the tube to Sarah's car. I will place it exactly where I found it, and then I will wait. Jason Matthews thinks he can devour my daughter's life like a feast and leave only bones. He's about to learn that some women don't break. They choose how to bend the world instead. This is not a story about forgiveness. This is not a story about healing. This is a story about what happens when a mother decides that justice wears her face and speaks in her voice. I am 63 years old. I have silver hair and pearl necklaces, and I am about to teach a man that some lessons can only be learned through pain. The tube sits on my kitchen counter, innocent as sin, ready as a loaded gun. Tomorrow, Jason Matthews will reach for pleasure and find something else entirely. I pour myself a glass of wine and toast the darkness outside my window. Some people pray for their enemies. I prefer to plan for them. Before we continue, I want to pause and ask you something important. How many of you watching this have been underestimated because of your age? How many have been told your best years are behind you? If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, let me tell you, that's a lie. Your story isn't over, and you still have chapters left to write. Our best-selling book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is filled with simple, powerful steps to help you heal, rebuild, and fall in love with life again. Click the link in the description box and start your new beginning today. Trust me, the woman who's about to show Jason Matthews what real power looks like knows that age is just another word for experience. And experience, my friends, is the sharpest weapon of all. Now, let's see what happens when underestimating a woman becomes the biggest mistake of a man's life. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because this story is about to get very interesting. I have always believed that truth reveals itself in layers, like an onion that makes you cry the deeper you peel. This morning, sitting in my kitchen with coffee growing cold in my cup, I decided to peel back 7 years of my daughter's marriage. The morning sun streams through my windows, casting long shadows across newspaper clippings and bank statements spread across my dining table. I am methodical by nature. 40 years of legal practice teaches you to build cases brick by brick, evidence by evidence. Sarah's marriage to Jason began like a romantic novel. He was finishing his MBA, she was working as a graphic designer, and they met at a charity gala I had organized for the Children's Hospital. He was charming that night, attentive to Sarah, respectful to me. He wore a well-tailored suit and spoke about his plans to start his own consulting firm with the confidence of a man who had never failed at anything important. He makes me feel safe, Sarah told me after their third date. She was glowing with that particular light that only comes from being seen and wanted. I remember thinking that safety was an interesting word choice for a 28-year-old woman to use about a man. Now I understand why. The wedding was magnificent. 200 guests at the Ritz-Carlton, Sarah floating down the aisle in ivory silk that cost more than most cars. Jason's vows were poetry. He promised to protect her, to cherish her, to be her shelter in every storm. The photographer caught the moment perfectly, his hands cradling her face, her eyes shining with absolute trust. I have that photograph on my mantle. Sometimes I look at it and wonder when exactly he decided my daughter wasn't enough. The first crack appeared in year 3. Sarah mentioned that Jason was working late more often, traveling for business, networking with potential clients. She was proud of his ambition, supportive of his dreams. When he bought the expensive watch, the new suits, the membership to the country club they couldn't afford, she called it investing in his future. I called it spending money he didn't have on a life he wasn't living with her. Year 4 brought the first real argument I witnessed. Sarah wanted to start trying for children, Jason wanted to wait until his business was more established. The conversation happened in my kitchen during Sunday dinner, their voices careful and controlled while the roast grew cold on the table. "It's not that I don't want kids," Jason said, cutting his meat with precision. "It's just that timing is everything in business. We need to be smart about this." Sarah nodded, but I saw how her hand went to her stomach, the unconscious gesture of a woman already mourning the children she wasn't carrying. Year 5 was when I started keeping records. Not intentionally at first. I'm organized by nature, and I tend to remember details. But small inconsistencies began adding up like compound interest. Jason said he was in Phoenix for a conference, but his credit card showed charges in Las Vegas. He mentioned a client dinner that ran late, but the restaurant he named was closed for renovations that week. I am a lawyer. Inconsistencies are blood in the water. By year 6, I had a file. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would hold up in court, but enough to make me pay attention. The late-night phone calls that made him step outside. The weekends when he claimed to be golfing but came home without a tan. The way he started showering as soon as he walked in the door, as if he needed to wash away evidence of wherever he'd been. Sarah never questioned any of it. Love, I've learned, is often just elaborate blindness. Then came the real proof. It was Sarah's birthday last year, her 34th. Jason was supposed to take her to dinner at Le Bernardin, their special place. At the last minute, he claimed a client emergency and canceled. Sarah spent her birthday evening with me instead, picking a takeout sushi and trying not to cry. The next morning, I drove past the Marriott downtown and saw Jason's car in the parking garage. Not surprising in itself, he claimed to have meetings there sometimes. But the woman walking out of the hotel lobby with him wasn't a client. She was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair and the kind of figure that turns heads. She wore a red dress that cost more than Sarah's monthly grocery budget, and Jason's hand rested on her back with the casual familiarity of ownership. I took photographs. Good ones. Clear faces, identifiable location, timestamp showing 9:47 a.m. on what should have been a workday. Her name, I learned through careful investigation, is Ashley Pierce. She works as a marketing coordinator at a firm 2 blocks from Jason's office. She drives a white Audi that Jason's credit cards helped finance. She lives in a downtown apartment that Jason's shell company owns. And 6 months ago, she gave birth to a baby that has Jason's eyes and Jason's smile. I have been watching, documenting, preparing. Every text message receipt, every credit card statement, every weekend when Jason claimed to be traveling for work, but his location showed him 15 minutes away from Ashley's apartment. Sarah knows none of this. Sarah, who still kisses him goodbye every morning and thanks him for working so hard to pay her medical bills. Sarah, who defends his absences and makes excuses for his distance and believes his promises that things will be different once her health improves. But I know. And knowledge, properly applied, is power. This morning, while Sarah undergoes treatment that will leave her exhausted and hopeful, I am preparing to return the modified tube to her car. Jason texted her an hour ago, "Working late tonight, don't wait up. Love you." I know where he'll be working. I know who he'll be with. And I know exactly what will happen when he reaches for that tube tonight. The beauty of perfect revenge is that it requires no explanation. The guilty always understand their punishment, even when the innocent remain blameless. I check my reflection in the hallway mirror before leaving for the hospital. Silver hair perfectly styled, pearls gleaming at my throat, lipstick applied with the precision of war paint. I look like what I am. A 63-year-old woman who has lived long enough to understand that sometimes justice wears high heels and carries a designer purse. Jason Matthews thinks he is clever. He thinks my daughter is blind and I am naive. Tonight, he will learn the difference between thinking and knowing. St. Mary's Hospital smells like disinfectant and broken promises. I walk through the corridors with the steady pace of someone who belongs here, my heels clicking against polished floors like a metronome counting down to justice. Sarah is in room 314, connected to machines that beep and whir with electronic sympathy. Today's treatment was particularly difficult. Chemotherapy agents that attack her overactive immune system like friendly fire in a war she never chose to fight. "Mom," she whispers when I enter, her voice thin as tissue paper. "You came?" "I always come," I tell her, settling into the chair that has become my second home over the past 6 months. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck," she attempts to smile. "But Dr. Martinez says my numbers are improving. The new protocol might actually be working." I smooth her hair away from her face, noting how the treatments have thinned it, how her skin has taken on that translucent quality of expensive china. She is still beautiful, will always be beautiful, but fragile in a way that makes me want to wrap her in cotton and hide her from the world. Instead, I failed to hide the world from her. "Where's Jason?" I ask, though I already know the answer. "He had to work late," Sarah says automatically. "Big presentation tomorrow for potential investors." "He hates missing visiting hours, but his business comes first," I finish gently. "It's not like that, Mom. He's working so hard to pay for all this." She gestures weakly at the 4-pole, the monitors, the expensive machinery keeping her stable. "I know he'd rather be here." "Would he?" I think of the photographs in my purse, the credit card statements showing charges at jewelry stores and lingerie boutiques, the apartment lease I traced through 3 shell companies. I think of Ashley Pierce, 25 and glowing with health and carrying Jason's child while my daughter fights for her life in a hospital bed. "I'm sure he would." I lie smoothly. I pull out a book, Jane Austen's Persuasion, and begin to read aloud. Sarah's eyes flutter closed, but I know she's listening. We've been doing this for months now, working our way through classics while chemicals flow through her veins and hope flows through her heart. "There is nothing I would not do for those who are really my friends," I read. "I have no notion of loving people by halves. It is not my nature." Sarah sighs softly. "I love that line. And Elliot was a wise woman." I agree. She understood that love requires action, not just words. "Like you," Sarah murmurs. "You've been my anchor through all this." If only she knew what kind of anchor I truly am. Around 8 p.m., I excuse myself to use the restroom. Instead, I take the elevator to the parking garage where Sarah's BMW sits in space B47. The tube is in my purse, identical to the original except for its contents. I slip it back into the glove compartment exactly where I found it, behind the insurance papers and breath mints. The parking garage is quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic. I stand beside the BMW for a moment, imagining Jason's hands reaching for that tube in a few hours, imagining the moment when anticipation turns to agony. Some women pray for their enemies. I prefer to plan for them. When I return to Sarah's room, she's sleeping. The machines continue their electronic lullaby, monitoring heartbeats and blood pressure and the 1,000 small battles her body fights every moment. I sit in the chair and watch her breathe. This daughter I would move mountains for. This child I would burn the world to protect. My phone buzzes with a text from Jason, still at office. "Presentation running long. Kiss Sarah for me." I know he's lying. I know exactly where he is and who he's with. In 2 hours, maybe 3, he'll reach for that tube and discover what happens when a man mistakes kindness for weakness. At 11 p.m., a nurse comes to check Sarah's vitals. She's young, maybe Ashley's age, with kind eyes and gentle hands. "She's sleeping peacefully," the nurse observes. "That's good. Rest is the best medicine sometimes." Yes, I agree. Sometimes people need to be unconscious to heal properly. The nurse smiles and makes notes on her chart, missing the double meaning entirely. I stay until midnight, reading silently while Sarah sleeps. The hospital grows quieter as visiting hours end and the night shift takes over. Somewhere across the city, Jason is discovering that actions have consequences, that betrayal has a price, that some debts can only be paid in pain. I close the book and kiss Sarah's forehead, breathing in the faint scent of her lavender lotion mixed with hospital antiseptic. Sleep well, sweetheart, I whisper. Tomorrow, everything will be different. In the parking garage, I sit in my car for a moment before starting the engine. My phone is silent, but I know that won't last. Soon there will be frantic calls, panicked voices, the sound of sirens cutting through the night. I drive home through empty streets, past houses where families sleep peacefully, unaware that justice is being served 3 neighborhoods over. My house is dark and quiet, a sanctuary of polished wood and fresh flowers, and the kind of order that comes from a lifetime of controlling what can be controlled. I pour myself a glass of wine and sit on my back porch, looking up at stars that seem brighter tonight than they have in months. Somewhere in the city, Jason Matthews is learning that some women don't break, they choose how to bend the world instead. Tomorrow, I will return to the hospital. I will hold Sarah's hand and read to her from books about women who fought for what they deserved. And when the phone calls come, when the questions start, when the pieces of Jason's carefully constructed lies begin to crumble, I will be exactly where I always am, at my daughter's side, protecting what matters most. At 2:17 a.m., my phone rings. I'm sitting in my kitchen, wide awake despite the late hour, sipping chamomile tea and watching the digital clock count down to Jason's reckoning. The phone's shrill sound cuts through the silence like a blade, but I let it ring 3 times before answering. A woman my age doesn't leap for phones in the middle of the night. It suggests anticipation, and anticipation suggests knowledge. Mara Hart, I answer, my voice steady and slightly sleepy. Mara, thank God. It's Jason, and he sounds like a man drowning. Something terrible has happened. I'm at Memorial Hospital, and Memorial? What's wrong? Is it Sarah? I inject just the right amount of panic into my voice. I was just with her at St. Mary's. She seemed... No, it's not Sarah. It's me. There's been an accident. I need you to come. Please. An accident. How delicately he phrases his humiliation. What kind of accident, Jason? You're scaring me. Silence stretches between us, filled with shame and things he can't say. Finally, I'll explain when you get here. Emergency room. And Mara, don't call Sarah. Please. She doesn't need to know about this, not while she's so sick. Don't call Sarah. How thoughtful of him to want to spare my daughter the knowledge of his infidelity. How considerate to protect her from learning about Ashley Pierce and the baby and the apartment and the lies upon lies upon lies. I'm on my way, I tell him. I take my time getting dressed. Black slacks, cream silk blouse, pearls that gleam like small moons against my throat. I apply lipstick with the precision of war paint and spray perfume behind my ears. Chanel No. 5, the same scent I wore to my first murder trial 40 years ago. The drive to Memorial takes 25 minutes through empty streets. I use the time to compose my face, to practice the expressions of shock and concern and maternal worry that the next few hours will require. In the rear-view mirror, my eyes look sharp as winter stars. Memorial's emergency room buzzes with the controlled chaos of a Saturday night. Drunk college students, domestic violence cases, overdoses, and somewhere among them, Jason Matthews learning what happens when karma wears designer heels and carries a law degree. I find him in bed 7, curtained off from the main emergency room. The sight that greets me is everything I hoped for and more. Jason lies on his side, facing away from the curtain opening, his body rigid with pain and humiliation. A A sheet covers him from the waist down, but I can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands grip the bed rails like a man holding onto the edge of a cliff. Jason. I call softly. He turns his head, and I see what I came to see. Eyes red with pain and shame, face flushed with the kind of embarrassment that burns from the inside out. He looks like a man who has stared into the abyss and found his own reflection staring back. Mara, he whispers. Thank you for coming. I move to his bedside with the concerned grace of a devoted mother-in-law. What happened? Are you hurt? He stops, swallows hard, tries again. There was an incident. A medical emergency. I can't really explain it. Try, I say gently, pulling a chair close to his bed. I'm not going anywhere. The story comes out in pieces, like shards of broken glass. He was with a client, he claims. Late meeting. Working on a deal. They were in her apartment, strictly business, of course, when something went wrong. Something terrible. There was... He can't say it. Can't form the words that would make his betrayal real and spoken and undeniable. It's okay. I soothe, reaching out to touch his shoulder. Take your time. A doctor appears at the curtain, Dr. Williams, according to his badge. He's young, maybe 35, with kind eyes that have seen too much already tonight. Mrs. Hart? I'm Dr. Williams. I understand you're here, for Mr. Matthews? I'm his mother-in-law. I explain. His wife is in the hospital herself, very sick, so he called me. Can you tell me what's wrong? Dr. Williams glances at Jason, who nods miserably. Mr. Matthews has suffered what we call an adhesive injury. His skin has been bonded to another person's skin through contact with an industrial adhesive. Bonded. I repeat, as if the concept is foreign to me. Essentially, they're stuck together. We've managed to separate them enough for basic medical care, but it's going to require surgical intervention to fully resolve the situation. I turn to Jason with perfect motherly concern. How did you come into contact with industrial adhesive? Jason's face cycles through shades of red and white. I don't know. We don't know. There must have been a mix-up. Somehow. A mix-up. Yes, there certainly was. And the other person? I ask Dr. Williams. Are they all right? She's being treated in the room next door. Similar injuries. They'll both need skin grafts, probably, and there may be permanent scarring. Permanent scarring. How poetic. Jason will carry the mark of his infidelity on his body for the rest of his life, a scarlet letter written in scar tissue and shame. When can he go home? I ask. We're admitting both patients for observation and surgery. Probably looking at a week-long stay minimum. A week. 7 days of Jason lying in a hospital bed, unable to work or lie or charm his way out of consequences. 7 days of phone calls from the office, questions from colleagues, explanations he can't give without confessing to what he was really doing. I should call Sarah, I say, reaching for my phone. No. Jason's voice is sharp with panic. Please, Mara. She's so sick, and she doesn't need to worry about this right now. It was just a business meeting that went wrong. Some kind of industrial accident. She doesn't need to know the details.
Industrial accident.
I almost admire his creativity. I suppose you're right. I agree reluctantly. But she'll want to know why you're in the hospital. Tell her I had appendicitis, he says quickly. Something simple. Something that won't worry her. More lies. Even now, even lying in a hospital bed with his sins literally written on his body, he chooses deception over truth. I'll handle it. I promise him. I stay until dawn, playing the role of concerned mother-in-law with Oscar-worthy dedication. I bring him water, adjust his pillows, speak to doctors and nurses on his behalf. I even step outside to call Sarah, waking her gently to explain that Jason has had a minor medical procedure and is recovering well. Appendicitis, I tell her. Routine surgery, nothing to worry about. He'll be home in a few days. Should I try to visit him? Sarah asks, her voice thick with sleep and medication. He thinks you should focus on your own recovery, I say. You know how he worries about you overdoing things. Another lie wrapped in concern, another deception dressed as love. When I finally leave Memorial Hospital, the sun is rising over a city that has no idea what transpired in the darkness. I drive home with the satisfaction of a job well done, a plan executed with surgical precision. Jason Matthews wanted to have his cake and eat it too. Instead, he got industrial adhesive and a lifetime of explanations he'll never be able to give. Some lessons can only be learned through pain. And some teachers wear pearls and smile while they watch the lesson unfold. By Sunday afternoon, the story has taken on a life of its own. I'm at Sarah's bedside, reading aloud from Pride and Prejudice while she dozes between treatments when the first phone call comes. It's Jason's business partner, David Kim, and his voice carries the peculiar mixture of concern and curiosity that accompanies truly spectacular gossip. Mara, I hope I'm not bothering you. I tried to reach Jason, but his phone goes straight to voicemail. I heard he's in the hospital. Yes, I say, stepping into the hallway for privacy. Appendicitis. Sudden onset Friday night. He's recovering well. That's strange, David says. Because I just got off the phone with Memorial Hospital, and they said he's in the burn unit. The burn unit. How interesting that detail is traveling. There were complications, I explained smoothly. Some kind of allergic reaction to the anesthesia. You know how sensitive Jason can be. David makes noncommittal noises, but I can hear the wheels turning. Jason's sensitivity is news to everyone who knows him. The second call comes from Jason's assistant, Patricia, then his golf partner, then someone from the country club. Each conversation follows the same pattern, concern layered over curiosity, sympathy masking the human hunger for scandalous detail. By Monday morning, when I arrive at Sarah's room with fresh flowers and yesterday's newspaper, she's fielding calls of her own. Mrs. Henderson from down the street called. She tells me, looking puzzled. She said there were ambulances at the Matthews house Friday night. But Jason doesn't live there anymore. We moved out 2 years ago after. She stops, confusion clouding her features. After what, sweetheart? I don't know. I thought we moved because of my medical bills, but Mrs. Henderson seemed to think Jason still lived there. She said she saw his car in the driveway around midnight, and then all the sirens. The web of lies is beginning to unravel, thread by careful thread. I sit beside her bed and take her hand. Maybe Mrs. Henderson is confused. You know how she gets sometimes. But Sarah's not listening. She's staring out the window with that particular expression she gets when pieces of a puzzle are clicking together in ways she doesn't want to acknowledge. Mom, she says quietly, where exactly does Jason live now? It's a simple question that requires a complicated answer. Jason officially lives in a downtown apartment that he officially uses for work and business meetings. Unofficially, he spends most nights at Ashley Pierce's place, playing house with a woman young enough to be his daughter and a baby who carries his DNA. I think he has a corporate apartment downtown, I say carefully, for when he works late. Then why would his car be at our old house? Our old house. The house that Jason kept after their separation, claiming it was an investment property. The house where Mrs. Henderson saw ambulances and chaos and a scandal that will define Jason Matthews for the rest of his professional life. I'm saved from answering by Dr. Martinez, who arrives with test results and cheerful optimism about Sarah's progress. But I can see the questions forming in my daughter's eyes, the slow dawn of understanding that comes when lies finally lose their power to convince. That afternoon, I visit Jason. He's in a private room now, though privacy is a relative concept when your medical condition is the talk of 3 hospital floors. His face is taken on the grayish pallor of a man who hasn't slept in days, and his eyes dart to the door every time footsteps pass in the hallway. "Any word from work?" he asks hopefully. "David called," I tell him. "And Patricia."
They're concerned about you.
"What did you tell them?" "The truth. That you had appendicitis with complications." He relaxes slightly, but I'm not finished. "Although David seemed confused about why you're in the burn unit if you had appendicitis. And Patricia mentioned that several clients have been calling about missed meetings and broken appointments." The relaxation disappears instantly. "I can't exactly explain what really happened," he says bitterly. "No, I agree. You can't. Because explaining what really happened would require admitting where you were and who you were with and why you were there in the first place." We stare at each other across the hospital bed, and for the first time since I've known him, Jason Matthews looks at me and sees exactly who I am. Not Sarah's sweet, naive mother. Not the dotty older woman who can be charmed and managed and kept in the dark. He sees Mara Hart, 63 years old, 40-year legal career, a woman who has buried a husband and raised a daughter and learned that sometimes the people you love most need protection from the people who claim to love them. "You know," he says quietly. "It's not a question." "I know many things," I reply. "I know about Ashley Pierce. I know about the apartment on 5th Street. I know about the baby who has your eyes and your smile. I know about the shell companies and the credit cards and the business trips that aren't business trips." His face goes white, then red, then white again. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to document it. Long enough to build a case. Long enough to decide what to do about it." "And what did you decide to do about it?" I smile. The same smile I've worn to 1,000 depositions and court hearings. The smile that means somebody is about to learn that underestimating women is the most expensive mistake a man can make. "I decided to let you teach yourself the lesson." Understanding dawns in his eyes like sunrise over a battlefield. "The tube," he whispers. "Industrial adhesive," I confirm. "Specifically formulated for permanent bonding of non-porous surfaces." I imagine the removal process was quite educational. He stares at me with a mixture of horror and grudging respect. "You could have just told Sarah." I could have. But telling Sarah would have broken her heart while she's fighting for her life. This way, she discovers your betrayal gradually, naturally, when she's strong enough to handle the truth. And you get to experience consequences that match the magnitude of your choices. "The scarring will be permanent," he says.
Yes.
Every time you look in the mirror, every time you shower, every time someone sees you naked for the rest of your life, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that actions have consequences and that some women don't forgive. They adjust the balance of justice instead. Jason closes his eyes and leans back against his pillows. "What happens now?" "Now? Now you decide who you want to be. The man who continues lying to my daughter while she fights for her life, or the man who tells her the truth and accepts whatever consequences come with that truth. And if I tell her? Then she'll divorce you, take half of everything you own, and probably get full custody of any future children. But she'll also know that even at the end, even when it cost you everything, you chose honesty over convenience. And if I don't tell her?" I stand up, smooth my skirt, check my reflection in the window. Pearls gleaming, lipstick perfect, silver hair catching the afternoon light like spun platinum. "If you don't tell her, I will." But my version of the truth comes with photographs and credit card statements and DNA tests and a very public divorce proceeding that will make your industrial adhesive experience look like a minor inconvenience. I pick up my purse and move toward the door. "Choose wisely, Jason. You're about to learn that some decisions can't be undone, some bridges can't be rebuilt, and some women are far more dangerous than you ever imagined." I pause at the door and look back at him one final time. Oh, and Jason? Ashley Pierce received an interesting package this morning. Photographs, financial records, proof that the apartment she thinks you bought for her is actually owned by a shell company that will disappear the moment your assets are frozen. She'll be moving out by the end of the week. His face crumbles like old paper. You destroyed everything. No, I correct him gently. You destroyed everything. I simply made sure the destruction was visible. The truth has a way of spreading like wildfire, consuming everything in its path until only ash and honesty remain. It's Tuesday morning when Sarah calls me, her voice shaking with something that might be anger or relief or both. Mom, I need you to come to the hospital.
Now.
I find her sitting up in bed, laptop open, surrounded by printouts, and her phone buzzing constantly with incoming calls. Her face is color for the first time in weeks, high spots of red on her cheeks that speak of fury rather than fever. Tell me you didn't know, she says without preamble. I could lie. I could maintain the fiction that I'm just a concerned mother-in-law, innocent of all knowledge and complicit in nothing more than love for my daughter. But Sarah deserves better than another lie, even one told to protect her. I knew, I admit, settling into the chair beside her bed. How long? 2 years. Maybe longer. She nods as if this confirms something she already suspected. Mrs. Henderson called this morning. She wanted to make sure I knew that the ambulances Friday night weren't for Jason's appendicitis. They were for something much more specific. I wait. Sarah has always been brilliant when she decides to focus that intelligence like a laser. So I started making calls. The hospital, the police, the neighbors. She gestures to the printouts scattered across her bed. Amazing what people will tell you when they think you already know the story. And what story did they tell you? That my husband was found Friday night, stuck to another woman with industrial adhesive. In our old house. In our old bedroom. In our old bed. Her voice remains steady, but her hands shake as she shuffles through papers. They had to call hazmat teams, Mom. Hazmat teams. I reach for her hand, but she pulls away. The woman is Ashley Pierce, 25 years old, marketing coordinator. And according to the birth certificate I found online, she gave birth to Jason Michael Matthews Jr. 6 months ago. The full truth, laid out like evidence in a trial. My daughter, the graphic designer, has always been good at research and presentation. 6 months, she repeats. While I was getting diagnosed, while we were finding specialists, while I was scared I might die, my husband was playing house with another woman and their baby. Sarah, did you know about the baby? Yes. Did you know he's been supporting her? The apartment, the car, the credit cards? Yes. Did you know he told me we couldn't afford to start a family while he was already supporting one? The question hangs in the air like smoke. I watch my daughter process the full scope of her husband's betrayal, see the moment when hurt transforms into something harder and more useful. Who else knows, she asks. About the affair? Several people suspected. About Friday night? By now, probably half the city. Sarah laughs, a sound like breaking crystal. His reputation is destroyed. Completely. His business is ruined. Most likely. Good. She closes the laptop with decisive snap. Because I'm about to make sure the rest of his life matches. I need to pause here because I see some of you in the comments asking if this is really how revenge works. Let me tell you something. Real revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting justice. And sometimes justice looks like a 63-year-old woman with pearls and a law degree deciding that enough is enough. If you're going through your own betrayal, if someone has broken your trust and shattered your world, remember this. Your pain is valid, your anger is justified, and your decision to rebuild is powerful. Our book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, has an entire chapter on moving from victim to victor, from broken to bulletproof. The link is in the description, and trust me, by the time we're done with this story, you'll understand exactly what real power looks like. Now, let's see what happens when a brilliant woman decides to take control of her own narrative. Don't forget to subscribe. This is about to get very satisfying. The divorce papers are filed by Thursday. I accompany Sarah to her lawyer's office, a sharp young woman named Victoria Chen who specializes in high-asset divorces and has a reputation for leaving opposing counsel bleeding on the courtroom floor. This is quite a case, Victoria says, reviewing the evidence Sarah has compiled. Adultery, financial fraud, misuse of marital assets, emotional abandonment during a medical crisis. In some states, this would be considered grounds for a fault-based divorce with significant financial penalties. What kind of penalties? Sarah asks. Total asset forfeiture in extreme cases. He could walk away with nothing. Sarah turns to me. Is that what you want, Mom? For him to lose everything? I consider the question carefully. What do I want for Jason Matthews? I want him to understand that choices have consequences. I want him to learn that betrayal has a price. I want him to carry the weight of his decisions for the rest of his life. I want him to be honest about who he is. I say finally. If losing everything is the price of that honesty, then yes. That's exactly what I want. Victoria spreads documents across her conference table like tarot cards predicting Jason's future. Financial statements, property deeds, business valuations, custody agreements. We can go nuclear, she says. Full disclosure in court proceedings, public record of all evidence, media attention that will follow him for years. Or we can handle this quietly, privately, with a settlement that protects your daughter's dignity while still ensuring appropriate consequences. What would you do? Sarah asks me. I think of Jason lying in his hospital bed, marked permanently by his own poor choices. I think of Ashley Pierce, packing her belongings while the foundations of her borrowed life crumble beneath her feet. I think of the baby who will grow up knowing that his father chose pleasure over responsibility, excitement over commitment. I would make sure the consequences fit the crime, I say. Nothing more, nothing less. Sarah nods. Nuclear it is. The papers are served Friday morning while Jason is still in the hospital. Victoria hand-delivers them personally, along with a notice of asset freeze and a restraining order preventing him from accessing joint accounts or disposing of marital property. I'm not there for the delivery, but Victoria calls afterward with a report. He cried, she says simply. Actual tears. Asked if there was any way to stop the proceedings, any way to make this private. I told him privacy was a luxury he forfeited when he chose to conduct his affairs in public. What did he say to that? He asked if Sarah would see him, if he could explain. And you told him? That explanations are usually more convincing when they come before consequences, not after. By Friday afternoon, the story has reached the local news. Not front-page material, but enough for the weekend human interest segments. Local businessman hospitalized in bizarre accident involving industrial adhesive. The details are vague, legally sanitized, but anyone who knows Jason will recognize the implications. His business phone rings constantly, clients with questions, colleagues with concerns, competitors with barely concealed glee. By Monday, 3 major contracts have been canceled. By Wednesday, his business partner David is filing papers to dissolve their partnership. The beautiful thing about social destruction is that it's self-perpetuating. Once doubt is introduced, once questions are raised, once whispers begin, the damage spreads organically. I don't need to orchestrate Jason's professional downfall. I simply need to provide the initial push and watch gravity do the rest. Jason is discharged from the hospital on a gray Tuesday morning, 10 days after his world exploded in industrial adhesive and public humiliation. I watch from my car as he emerges through the automatic doors, moving carefully, clearly still in pain. He looks older than his 38 years. The confidence that once defined him has been replaced by the hunched shoulders of a man who expects bad news around every corner. His clothes hang loose on his frame, and there are dark circles under his eyes that speak of sleepless nights and painful reckonings. He sees me waiting by the parking garage entrance and approaches slowly, like a man walking to his own execution. "Mara," he says simply. "Jason. Thank you for coming. Sarah asked me to drive you home. She thought you might have trouble managing on your own." He winces, whether from physical pain or the reminder of his wife's unexpected mercy. I can't tell. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asks. "The apartment lease is in Ashley's name, and she." He trails off. "She moved out," I finish. "Yes, I heard. The house, our old house, it's been sealed by the health department. Hazmat contamination. They say it might be weeks before you can go back to the scene of the crime?" He flinches. "I deserve that. You deserve much worse than that." We drive in silence through streets that once felt familiar to him, past the office building where his nameplate has already been removed from the directory, past the country club where his membership has been quietly revoked, past the restaurant where he proposed to Sarah 7 years ago with promises he never intended to keep. "Where are we going?" he asks finally. "Sarah wants to see you. She's still sick. She shouldn't have to deal with her husband's betrayal? No, she shouldn't. But unfortunately, that's not a choice she gets to make." I park at St. Mary's Hospital and watch Jason struggle to get out of the car. Whatever surgical procedures were required to separate him from Ashley Pierce have left him moving like a much older man. "Jason," I say as he reaches for the door handle. "Before we go in there, you should know that Sarah has seen all the evidence. The photographs, the financial records, the birth certificate. She knows about the apartment, the credit cards, the child. She knows everything."
His face goes white.
"Everything. Everything. So when you walk into that room, you have one chance to be honest with her. One chance to tell her the truth about who you are and what you've done and why you did it. If you lie to her, if you try to minimize or excuse or justify, I will make your industrial adhesive experience look like a spa treatment. Do you understand me?" He nods miserably. "Good. Now, let's go see what's left of your marriage." Sarah is sitting up in bed, wearing a blue silk pajama set I bought her last Christmas. Her hair is brushed, her makeup subtle but perfect. She looks like a woman preparing for battle, and in many ways, she is. Jason stops in the doorway, drinking in the sight of her. For a moment, I see a flash of the man who fell in love with my daughter 7 years ago, the man who saw her beauty and intelligence and chose her above all others. Then I remember that he also chose Ashley Pierce, and the moment passes. "Hello, Jason," Sarah says calmly. "Sarah, He stops, swallows, tries again. "I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
For all of it. Sit down." He takes the chair beside her bed, the same chair I've occupied for months while reading to her, holding her hand, watching her fight for her life while he built another one with someone else. "Tell me about her," Sarah says. "Sarah, please, you don't need to. Tell me about Ashley Pierce." Jason looks at me, then back at Sarah, then down at his hands. She was a colleague, a client contact. It started as business and became personal. Yes. When? 2 years ago. Maybe a little longer. When I was diagnosed. Around that time, yes. Were you already sleeping with her when I told you I might be dying? The question hits Jason like a physical blow. He actually recoils, his face cycling through shame and pain and something that might be recognition of his own monstrosity. "Yes," he whispers. "Was she pregnant when I asked you about starting a family?" "Yes." "Did you tell her you loved her?" "Sarah." Did you tell Ashley Pierce that you loved her while you were telling me we needed to wait to have children because of financial concerns? A long pause. Then, yes. Sarah nods, as if checking items off a mental list. Did you ever plan to leave me for her? I don't know. Maybe. I thought about it. What changed your mind? Jason looks up at her, and I see something break behind his eyes. Your illness. When you got sick, I realized I couldn't abandon you. Whatever else I had done, whatever mistakes I had made, I couldn't leave you to face that alone. How noble of you. Sarah, please. I know how this sounds, but what? But I should be grateful that you only betrayed me instead of abandoning me? But I should appreciate that you kept me as your wife while you built a life with another woman? But I should thank you for the privilege of fighting for my life while you fought for your pleasure. Each question lands like a slap. Jason's face reddens, then pales, then reddens again. No, he says finally. You shouldn't appreciate any of it. You shouldn't forgive any of it. You should hate me. I do hate you, Sarah says calmly. But I also loved you. For 7 years, I loved you completely, honestly, faithfully. I trusted you with my heart and my body and my future. I defended you to friends who had concerns. I made excuses for your absences and your distance and your lies. I believed in you even when believing hurt. Tears streamed down Jason's face now, silent and steady. The worst part, Sarah continues, isn't even the betrayal. It's the waste. All those years I spent loving a man who didn't exist. All that energy I spent building a marriage with someone who was already married to someone else. All that time I lost believing in forever with a man who was planning his exit strategy. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did hurt me. Every day for 2 years you hurt me. Every lie, every excuse, every time you came home from her bed to mine, you hurt me. Every time you held my hand in this hospital while planning to hold hers, you hurt me. Jason breaks then, sobbing with the desperate grief of a man who has finally seen himself clearly and found the view unbearable. I'm sorry, he chokes out. I'm so sorry. I would do anything to take it back, to be different, to be the man you deserved. But you can't, Sarah says gently. You can't take it back. You can't be different. You can't become the man I deserved, because that man never existed. He was just a character you played when it was convenient. She reaches out and touches his hand, and for a moment he looks hopeful. But I can forgive you, she says. Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve peace. I can let go of the anger and the betrayal and the waste, because holding on to them will poison my recovery and steal my future. Does that mean? It means I forgive you and I divorce you, and I move on with my life. It means you get to live with the consequences of your choices, while I get to live free of them. Sarah picks up a manila envelope from her bedside table and hands it to him. The divorce papers are inside. Sign them, Jason. Sign them and walk away, and let me heal from all of this. Let me recover from my illness and your betrayal, and start over with someone worthy of the love I have to give. Jason takes the envelope with shaking hands. What about the money? The house? The business? Keep whatever the court lets you keep. I don't want anything that's tainted with lies. Sarah. Go, Jason. Just go. And take some advice from my mother. Learn to be honest with the next woman you claim to love. Learn to be faithful. Learn to be worthy of trust. Because if you don't, if you keep being the man you were with me, you'll keep getting the consequences you got with me. Jason stands slowly, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. He looks at Sarah one last time, memorizing her face, maybe seeing her clearly for the first time in years. I really am sorry, he says. I know, Sarah replies. That's the tragedy of it all. You're sorry, but you're not changed. You're remorseful, but you're not different. You're ashamed, but you're not transformed. And that means the next woman you love will probably end up exactly where I am now. Jason leaves without another word, walking like a man carrying the weight of his own choices. When the door closes behind him, Sarah turns to me with tired eyes. How did I do, Mom? Like a woman who knows her worth, I tell her. Like a daughter, I'm proud to claim. Good, she says. Because now I want to sleep for about a week and wake up in a world where I never have to think about Jason Matthews again. That can be arranged, I promise her.
And it will be.
Because some women break when life betrays them, but others learn to break life back. My daughter has just discovered which kind of woman she is, and I couldn't be prouder. 6 weeks later, I'm sitting in my garden with morning coffee and the newspaper when the phone rings. It's Victoria Chun, Sarah's lawyer, and her voice carries the satisfaction of a woman who has just delivered perfect justice. It's done, she says simply. All of it. All of it. The judge signed the final decree this morning. Sarah gets the house, the savings, the investment accounts, and 70% of his business assets. Jason gets to keep his personal belongings and $20,000, enough to start over, not enough to maintain the lifestyle he's accustomed to.
$22,000.
After 7 years of marriage and a business worth nearly $2 million, Jason Matthews gets to walk away with less money than most people have in their retirement accounts. What about the child support? I ask. That's where it gets interesting. Ashley Pierce filed for paternity and support 3 weeks ago, right after the scandal broke, and she realized Jason wasn't going to be her meal ticket anymore. DNA tests confirmed what everyone already knew, and now Jason owes 18 years of support payments based on his previous income level. Even though his current income is essentially zero, the court doesn't care about self-inflicted financial ruin. As far as they're concerned, Jason has demonstrated earning capacity at the executive level, and Ashley Pierce's child deserves support commensurate with that capacity. I do the math in my head. 18 years of substantial child support payments with no significant income or assets to draw from. Jason will be working multiple jobs well into his 50s just to stay out of jail for contempt of court. Anything else? The house, his old house with Sarah, has been condemned. Apparently, the industrial adhesive interaction with other household chemicals created some kind of toxic situation. The health department says it's not safe for human habitation.
Condemned.
How poetically appropriate. Where is he living? Studio apartment above a convenience store in the warehouse district. 1 room, shared bathroom down the hall. I drove by yesterday. It's not the kind of place that impresses potential clients or romantic partners. I sip my coffee and watch a cardinal build its nest in my apple tree. Even birds understand the importance of creating stable foundations for their offspring. And his business prospects? Non-existent. Word has spread through the professional community about both the scandal and the divorce settlement. No one wants to partner with a man who's demonstrated such spectacularly poor judgment. He's applied for dozens of positions, everything from entry-level sales to restaurant management. So far, no takers. Why not? Background checks. The industrial adhesive incident made the police reports, which means it shows up in employment screenings. Hard to explain that away in a job interview. I set down my coffee cup and lean back in my garden chair. The morning sun feels warm on my face, and the flowers I planted last spring are blooming beautifully. There's something to be said for patience, for planting seeds and tending them carefully until they bear fruit. How's Sarah handling all this?
Victoria asks.
Beautifully. Her doctors say the stress reduction from the divorce has actually improved her medical condition. She's responding better to treatment, gaining weight, talking about the future in ways she hasn't in years. And you? How are you handling your victory?
Victory.
An interesting word choice. I'm not sure it's a victory, I tell her. Justice served feels different than battles won. Jason destroyed his own life. I just made sure the destruction was thorough and visible. Same result. Different satisfaction. After I hang up with Victoria, I drive to the hospital to visit Sarah. She's being discharged today, finally healthy enough to go home, strong enough to start rebuilding her life, clear-eyed enough to see the future as possibility rather than punishment. I find her in the lobby, signing paperwork and chatting with the nurses who have become like family over the past months. She's wearing a yellow sundress that brings out the color returning to her cheeks, and her hair has grown back thick and shiny from the treatments. Ready to go home? I ask. More than ready, she says, signing the last form with a flourish. Dr. Martinez says my numbers are the best they've been since diagnosis. Apparently, removing toxic relationships has measurable health benefits. We load her belongings into my car, flowers from well-wishers, books we've read together, the small collection of comforts that made her hospital room feel like home. As we drive through the city, I point out changes she's missed during her illness. New restaurants, construction projects, the subtle evolution that happens when life moves forward while you're focused on survival. Everything looks different, she observes. Everything is different, including you. Do I seem different? I consider the question as we pull into her driveway, the house that's now entirely hers, bought and paid for with assets liberated from a marriage built on lies. You seem clearer, I say finally. Less apologetic, more certain about what you deserve and what you won't accept. The hospital social worker called it trauma-induced growth. Apparently, surviving betrayal and life-threatening illness simultaneously can reorganize your priorities with remarkable efficiency. We carry her things inside, and I'm struck by how different the house feels. Jason's presence has been completely erased, his clothes, his books, his golf clubs, even the cologne smell that used to linger in the master bedroom. What remains is purely Sarah, clean lines, soft colors, fresh flowers, and the kind of order that comes from a woman who has learned to value peace above all else. I'm thinking about selling, she says, following my gaze around the living room. Why? Too many memories. I want to start completely fresh, somewhere that doesn't have Jason's fingerprints all over it. Where are you thinking? Somewhere warm. Somewhere I can garden year-round and swim in the ocean and wake up every morning grateful to be alive instead of angry about what almost killed me. That sounds perfect. Come with me. The invitation surprises me, though it shouldn't. Sarah and I have grown closer through her illness and Jason's betrayal, bonded by shared vigilance and mutual protection. I don't know, sweetheart. This is your fresh start. You've spent the last year of your life taking care of me. Let me spend the next year taking care of you. I look at my daughter, healthy, free, planning a future that belongs entirely to her, and then I think about Jason Matthews, learning to live with consequences that will follow him for the rest of his life. I think Jason Matthews will never again underestimate the women in his life. I say, I think he'll never again assume that charm and lies are sufficient substitutes for honesty and commitment. I think he'll never again believe that he can betray someone and walk away unscathed. And that's justice? That's education. Whether it becomes justice depends on what he does with what he's learned. Sarah refills our wine glasses and raises hers in a toast. To new beginnings, she says. To new beginnings, I agree. And to mothers who don't let their daughters settle for less than they deserve. And to daughters who are worth protecting. We drink to the sunset and the future and the satisfaction of a story that ends with the right people winning and the wrong people learning and justice served with precision and grace. Some women break when life betrays them. Others learn to break life back. And a precious few learn to rebuild life better than it was before. My daughter and I, it turns out, are among the precious few. 8 months later, I'm standing on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching dolphins play in the waves while my coffee grows cold in my hands. The house Sarah found in Santa Barbara is everything she promised: Spanish tile, ocean views, and gardens where we grow tomatoes and herbs and flowers that bloom year-round. My phone buzzes with a text from Victoria Chin. Thought you'd want to know. Jason filed for bankruptcy last week. Lost the warehouse apartment. Living in his car now. I delete the message without responding. Jason Matthews is no longer my concern, no longer my problem, no longer worthy of my attention. Some chapters end when you stop reading them, and I closed the book on him months ago. Mom, Sarah calls from the garden below. Come see what sprouted. I make my way down the stone steps to where my daughter kneels among raised beds we built together last spring. She's pointing to tiny green shoots emerging from dark soil, the heirloom tomatoes we planted from seeds, varieties that take patience and care but produce fruit unlike anything you can buy in stores. Beautiful, I tell her, kneeling beside her in the warm earth. Sarah is transformed. The fragile, translucent woman I watched fight for her life in sterile hospital rooms has been replaced by someone golden and strong, someone who wakes up eager for the day ahead instead of grateful simply to have survived the night before. Dr. Martinez called yesterday, she says, carefully watering the new sprouts. My latest blood work is completely normal. Completely, totally, utterly normal. Remission? Better than remission.
Cured.
Whatever combination of treatments and stress reduction and California sunshine we've been using, it worked. I sit back on my heels and look at her, really look at her. Healthy color in her cheeks, laugh lines around her eyes, calluses on her hands from gardening and swimming, and the physical labor of building a new life. She looks like a woman who has fought battles and won them, who has survived things that would break lesser people and emerged stronger for the experience. What do you want to do to celebrate? I ask. I want to plant more seeds. I want to call the contractor about expanding the guest cottage. I want to cook dinner for the neighbors and toast our ridiculous good fortune. Ridiculous good fortune? Mom, look around. Look what we built from the ashes of the worst year of my life. Look where we ended up after everything fell apart. If that's not ridiculous good fortune, I don't know what is. She's right, of course. A year ago, Sarah was fighting for her life while married to a man who betrayed her in every way possible. Today, she's healthy and free and planning dinner parties in a house that overlooks paradise. Speaking of neighbors, Sarah continues, Harrison stopped by while you were at the farmer's market. Harrison, the widowed professor who lives 3 houses down, who has been finding increasingly creative excuses to visit since we moved in. He's 65, silver-haired, and has the kind of gentle intelligence that comes from a lifetime of reading good books and asking thoughtful questions. What did he want? To ask if you'd like to have dinner with him tomorrow night. Apparently, there's a new restaurant in Montecito he thinks you'd enjoy. I consider this development while watching Sarah tend her seedlings. Harrison is kind, attractive, financially stable, and emotionally available. Everything Jason Matthews pretended to be, but never actually was. He's also patient enough to court a woman who has spent the last year learning to trust her own judgment again. What did you tell him? I told him you'd call him back.
But Mom?
I think you should say yes. Why? Because you've spent the last year protecting me, healing me, building a life around my recovery. It's time for you to have your own adventures. My own adventures. The phrase feels foreign after months of focusing entirely on Sarah's well-being and Jason's consequences. I'm 63 years old, sweetheart. My adventure-having days might be behind me. Sarah laughs, the sound bright and clear as church bells. Really? The woman who engineered one of the most creative revenge plots in modern history thinks she's too old for adventures? The woman who dismantled a man's entire life with industrial adhesive and legal precision thinks her interesting days are over. When she puts it that way, I suppose I do sound a bit defeatist. Besides, Sarah continues, Harrison isn't proposing marriage and babies. He's proposing dinner and conversation with a woman he finds fascinating. You can handle dinner and conversation. I suppose I can.
Good.
Because I already told him yes on your behalf. Sarah.
What? I know you, Mom.
You would have spent 3 weeks analyzing every possible outcome and talking yourself out of taking any risks. Sometimes daughters have to make decisions for mothers who are too careful for their own good. That evening, I sit on the terrace with wine and watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of rose and gold. The ocean stretches to the horizon, endless and full of possibility, and I think about the year that brought me here. 12 months ago, I was a widow living alone in a house full of memories, watching my daughter's marriage implode while her body attacked itself. I felt purposeless, powerless, invisible in the way that women my age often become, set aside while the world focuses on younger, more vital concerns. Tonight, I'm planning what to wear to dinner with a man who thinks I'm fascinating in a house I chose with a daughter who's healthier than she's been in years. I feel vital, relevant, dangerous in the best possible way. My phone rings, Sarah calling from inside the house. Mom, there's someone here to see you.
Who?
You should come see for yourself. I find a young woman standing in our living room, maybe 25, with blonde hair and nervous eyes. She's holding a baby who looks exactly like Jason Matthews, down to the cleft chin and stubborn cowlick. Mrs. Hart?
I'm Ashley Pierce.
I think we need to talk. I study the woman who helped destroy my daughter's marriage, noting the expensive handbag that's clearly a knockoff, the designer jeans that have seen better days, the carefully applied makeup that can't quite hide the stress lines around her eyes. Miss Pierce, I say calmly, how did you find us? It wasn't hard. Small community, beautiful house, 2 women who moved here from back east. People remember details like that. Sarah appears in the doorway, drawn by voices. When she sees Ashley holding Jason's son, her face goes through a series of expressions: surprise, pain, curiosity, and finally, resigned acceptance. Sarah, Ashley says quickly, I'm sorry to just show up like this. I tried calling, but your numbers are unlisted, and What do you want? Sarah asks, not unkindly, but without warmth. Ashley shifts the baby to her other hip. He's beautiful in the way all babies are, but there's no mistaking his parentage. He has Jason's eyes, Jason's nose, even Jason's way of tilting his head when he's curious about something. I want to apologize, Ashley says. And I want to tell you the truth about what happened. We know what happened, I interject. Your affair with my daughter's husband resulted in consequences for everyone involved. No, you don't understand. I didn't know. I mean, I knew he was married, but he told me. She stops, takes a breath, starts again. He told me you were separated, that you were living apart, that the divorce was just a matter of paperwork. He said you were just waiting for your health to improve before making it official. Sarah's face doesn't change, but I see her hands clench slightly. And you believed him? Sarah asks. I wanted to believe him. I was 23. He was successful and charming, and he made me feel special. When I got pregnant, he was so happy. He said it was perfect timing, that we could start fresh once his old life was legally settled. But you knew about the apartment payments, the credit cards, the financial support, I point out. Ashley's face flushes red. I thought he was just generous. I thought that's what successful men did, took care of people they cared about. Even married men? Especially married men who were getting divorced anyway. The baby starts to fuss, and Ashley bounces him gently. The movement is automatic, practiced, the unconscious rhythm of a mother who has learned to soothe without thinking. Why are you here now? Sarah asks. Why come all this way to apologize? Because I found out the truth. About the timeline, about your illness, about what he was really doing while I thought we were building a life together. How did you find out? Ashley reaches into her purse and pulls out a stack of papers, medical records, hospital bills, insurance statements. These were in boxes he left behind when he moved out of the warehouse apartment. Bills from your treatments, dating back 3 years. Records showing you were sick the entire time he was with me. Proof that he wasn't separated, wasn't getting divorced, wasn't anything he claimed to be. She hands the papers to Sarah, who glances through them with clinical detachment. 3 years of medical bills, Sarah observes. 3 years of fighting for my life, while he built another one with you.
I didn't know, Ashley repeats.
I swear on my son's life, I didn't know. What difference does it make now? I ask, though not harshly. Knowledge or ignorance, the damage is done. It makes a difference to me, Ashley says fiercely. I need you to know that I'm not a homewrecker, not a predator who goes after married men. I'm just a young woman who believed the wrong man's lies. And now? Sarah asks. Now I'm a single mother with no support, no prospects, and a baby who looks exactly like the man who destroyed both our lives. The truth hangs in the air like smoke. Jason Matthews, in his selfishness and cowardice, didn't just betray his wife, he betrayed his mistress too. He promised both women futures he had no intention of delivering, sold both women dreams he had no ability to fulfill. Where is he now? Sarah asks. I don't know. Last I heard, he was living in his car, working construction jobs when he can find them. The child support payments stopped 3 months ago. And you? I'm living with my parents. My son and I share my childhood bedroom, and I work part-time at a grocery store when my mom can babysit. It's not exactly the life Jason promised me. Sarah and I exchange glances. There's something almost tragic about Ashley Pierce, young, naive, and paying the price for trusting a man who had already proven himself untrustworthy. What do you want from us? I ask. I want to know how you did it. Did what? Survived him. Survived the betrayal and the lies and the complete destruction of everything you thought was real. Because I feel like I'm drowning, and you two seem like you're thriving. Sarah considers this for a long moment, looking at Ashley with something that might be compassion. We survived by accepting that loving the wrong person doesn't make us wrong people, she says finally. We survived by understanding that his choices reflect his character, not ours. We survived by building something better from the ruins he left behind. And by making sure the consequences of his actions were proportional to the damage he caused, I add. Ashley looks at me sharply. You're the one who replaced the lubricant. I am. With industrial adhesive. Among other things. That's. She pauses, searching for words. That's brilliant. Terrifying, but brilliant. It was justice, I correct. Terrifying justice, but justice nonetheless. The baby starts crying, and Ashley automatically reaches for a bottle from her diaper bag. As she feeds him, I see the tender, protective way she holds him, the fierce love that transforms her face when she looks at him. He's innocent in all this, she says softly. Whatever his father did, however he was conceived, this baby didn't choose any of it. No, Sarah agrees. He didn't. That's actually the other reason I came. I wanted you to know that when he's old enough to ask questions about his father, I'm going to tell him the truth. About the affair, about the lies, about the consequences. I want him to understand that actions have prices, that betrayal has costs, that some mistakes can't be undone. That's wise. I tell her. I also wanted you to know that I'm naming you in my prayers. Both of you. Because even though I was part of what hurt you, you taught me something important about what it means to refuse to be a victim. Sarah stands up and moves to the window, looking out at the ocean. When she turns back, her face is calm and decided. Ashley, she says, I can't forgive Jason. I won't forgive him, because forgiveness requires acknowledgement and change, and he's shown no evidence of either. But I can forgive you because I believe you were as much his victim as I was. Ashley's eyes fill with tears. Thank you. And I can offer you something else.
What? Advice.
Woman to woman, mother to future mother, survivor to survivor. I'd be grateful for any advice you can give me. Sarah sits back down, leaning forward with the intensity of someone who has learned important truths the hard way. Don't let him define you. Don't let what happened with Jason convince you that you're stupid or naive or unworthy of real love. You made a mistake in trusting him, but the mistake was in your judgment, not in your character. How do you know the difference? Because people with good character learn from their mistakes. People with bad character repeat them. Which kind of person are you going to choose to be? Ashley considers this while her son finishes his bottle, his tiny fist wrapped around her finger with the absolute trust that only babies possess. The learning kind, she says finally. Good. Then you're going to be fine. It might take time, it might take work, it might take more strength than you think you have, but you're going to be fine. What about him? Ashley nods toward her son. What kind of chance does he have with Jason Matthews as a father? The same chance every child has, I tell her. The chance to become better than the people who made him. And if he ends up like his father, then you make sure the consequences are proportional to the damage, Sarah says, echoing my earlier words. You make sure he learns that actions have prices, that betrayal has costs, that some mistakes can't be undone. Ashley nods solemnly, as if accepting a sacred responsibility. One more thing, I add. When he's old enough to ask about what happened to his father, and he will ask, tell him everything. Tell him about the affair, the lies, the industrial adhesive, the bankruptcy, the consequences. Don't spare him the ugly details. Why? Because children need to understand that the world has rules, that breaking those rules has prices, and that charm and good looks and temporary pleasure are never worth permanent damage. The more clearly he understands what happened to Jason, the less likely he is to make Jason's choices. And if he judges his father harshly, then his judgment is accurate, Sarah says simply. Ashley stands up, shifting her son to her shoulder for burping. Thank you, both of you, for seeing me, for listening, for not slamming the door in my face. We've all been hurt by the same man, I tell her. That creates a certain solidarity. Will you? She hesitates. Would it be all right if I wrote to you sometimes? Not often, just occasionally, to let you know how we're doing. Sarah considers this request carefully. You can write to my mother, she says finally. Mara's better at maintaining connections with people from difficult chapters of our lives. I give Ashley my email address and walk her to the door. On the threshold, she turns back one more time. Mrs. Hart, when you replaced that lubricant, did you know exactly what would happen? I knew enough. Did you feel guilty about it?
No.
I felt satisfied, even though he was in incredible pain. Especially because he was in incredible pain. Pain has a way of clarifying priorities, of teaching lessons that pleasure never can. Jason needed to understand what it felt like to be trapped, to be helpless, to be completely at the mercy of someone else's choices. Now he understands, and that was worth the risk, worth the potential legal consequences. I think about Sarah, healthy and free and planning dinner parties in a house that overlooks paradise. I think about myself, 63 years old, and looking forward to dinner with a man who finds me fascinating. I think about Ashley Pierce, young and struggling but learning to be strong. Every bit of it was worth it, I tell her. After Ashley leaves, Sarah and I sit on the terrace with wine and watch stars appear over the ocean. Do you think she'll be all right? Sarah asks. I think she'll be whatever she chooses to be. That's the difference between her and Jason. She has the capacity to learn from mistakes instead of just regretting them. And the baby? The baby has a mother who's willing to tell him difficult truths and teach him hard lessons. That's more than many children get. Do you think Jason knows about tonight? About Ashley coming here? I don't know, and I don't care. Jason Matthews is no longer our concern. Good, Sarah says. Because I'm tired of giving him space in my head. What are you going to do with that space instead? Fill it with better things. Plans for the garden, ideas for redecorating the guest cottage, thoughts about the dinner party we're throwing next weekend. And anticipation for your date with Harrison tomorrow night. I smile, surprising myself with how natural it feels to think about new beginnings at 63. Speaking of which, what should I wear? Something that says, I'm a fascinating woman with excellent taste and a talent for problem solving. I'm not sure I own anything that says all that. Then we're going shopping tomorrow morning. Because the woman who engineered Jason Matthews' downfall deserves to look absolutely stunning on her first real date in 20 years. It's not really a first date. It's just dinner. Mom, when a widowed professor spends 8 months finding excuses to visit 2 women who just moved to town, and then finally works up the co. Mom, when a widowed professor spends 8 months finding excuses to visit 2 women who just moved to town, and then finally works up the courage to ask one of them to dinner, it's definitely a date. How do you know it's me he's interested in? He might be working up courage to ask you. Sarah laughs. Because when he talks to you, he gets the same look men used to get when they talked to me before I got sick. And because when he talks to me, he asks questions about you. What kind of questions? Whether you like classical music, whether you enjoy traveling, whether you've ever been to Italy, whether you miss practicing law. And what do you tell him? That he should ask you himself. Wise daughter. I learned from a wise mother. That night, I lie in bed listening to ocean waves and thinking about the strange journey that brought me to this place. A year ago, I was a woman defined by loss. Widow, retired lawyer, mother of a sick daughter married to a faithless man. Tonight, I'm a woman defined by possibility, survivor, protector, architect of justice, and tomorrow, perhaps something new entirely. Some stories end with revenge. Others end with justice. The best ones end with transformation. Mine, I think, is just beginning. 6 months after Ashley Pierce's visit, I'm standing in my walk-in closet, trying to decide between the blue silk dress and the black cocktail dress for tonight's celebration. Both are beautiful, both are age-appropriate, both make me look like a woman who has lived fully and learned wisely. The blue, Sarah calls from the doorway. It brings out your eyes, and Harrison loves it when you wear blue. Harrison, my gentleman caller of 8 months, who has become something approaching a boyfriend at our combined age of 128. He's everything Jason Matthews pretended to be: honest, faithful, emotionally available, and genuinely interested in building something real with a woman he considers as equal. What's the occasion again? I ask, though I know perfectly well. Don't play coy, Mom. It's the 1-year anniversary of our move to Santa Barbara, and you know it. 1 year. 12 months since we left our old lives behind and built something new from the ground up. The house has been transformed into a showcase of coastal elegance. The gardens produce enough vegetables to feed half the neighborhood, and both Sarah and I have become the kind of women we always had the potential to be, but never quite had the opportunity to become. Are you sure you don't mind hosting? I ask for the 3rd time today. I love hosting. I love cooking for people I care about. I love showing off this house we created together. And I love watching you be happy. Happy. It's such a simple word for such a complex emotional state. Am I happy? I'm healthy, financially secure, living in paradise with a daughter I adore and a man who values my intelligence as much as my appearance. If that's not happiness, it's close enough. The guest list is perfect, Sarah continues, straightening my jewelry box with unnecessary precision. Harrison, obviously. Victoria is flying in from back east. The neighbors we actually like. Professor Williams from the university. Dr. Martinez. Even Ashley Pierce. You invited Ashley? I invited Ashley. She's doing better, by the way. Got promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store, enrolled in online college courses, and started dating a very nice pediatric nurse who thinks her son is wonderful. Good for her. I thought you'd want to see how the story ended for all the players. All the players except one, of course. Jason Matthews, last we heard, was working construction in Nevada, living in a shared trailer with 3 other men, and still failing to make his child support payments consistently. Some stories end with redemption, others end with consequences that stretch into infinity. I should finish getting ready, I say, reaching for the blue dress. Actually, there's something I want to tell you first. Something in Sarah's tone makes me turn to look at her fully. She's glowing with that particular radiance that comes from excellent health and genuine contentment, but there's also something else, a barely contained excitement that makes her practically vibrate with energy. What is it? I'm writing a book.
A book. About us.
About this year. About what happened with Jason and how we handled it and where we ended up. I want to call it Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, a mother and daughter's guide to surviving betrayal and building better lives. I sit down heavily on the edge of my bed. Sarah, you can't. I can, and I am. I've already written the first 3 chapters, and I have a publisher interested. But the legal implications. I've run everything past Victoria. As long as I change names and locations, as long as I focus on the emotional journey rather than the specific methods of revenge, as long as I present it as a story of survival rather than a how-to manual for destruction, we're legally protected. And you want to share our story with the world? I want to share our strategy with women who need it. Mom, do you have any idea how many women are living with betrayal right now? How many are lying in hospital beds wondering if their husbands are faithful? How many are making excuses for men who don't deserve excuses? And you think our story will help them? I think our story will show them that they have options besides forgiveness and victimhood. I think our story will teach them that consequences and justice are not the same thing as revenge and destruction. I think our story will prove that life after betrayal can be better than life before betrayal if you're willing to fight for what you deserve. I consider this while watching Sarah's face, noting the passion and purpose that light her from within. My daughter has found her calling, it seems, helping other women navigate the treacherous waters of betrayal and emerge stronger on the other side. What do you need from me? Your blessing, your partnership, your willingness to co-author this with me. Co-author? The women who need this story need both perspectives, the mother who orchestrated justice and the daughter who survived betrayal. They need to understand that protecting the people you love sometimes requires actions that civilized society considers uncivilized. And you think there's an audience for that message? I think there's a desperate need for that message. Look at our email inbox, Mom. Ever since Victoria started telling the story at legal conferences, we've been getting letters from women all over the country. Women who recognize their own lives in our story, women who wanted to know how we did what we did, women who needed permission to stop being victims and start being warriors. She's right, of course. The emails have been pouring in for months, testimonials from women who felt empowered by our example, questions from daughters whose mothers were too passive, inquiries from mothers whose daughters were too trusting. What would my role be? Writing the sections about strategy, about planning, about the practical aspects of ensuring that consequences match crimes. The parts that require a legal mind and a strategist's heart. And yours? Writing about recovery, about rebuilding, about the emotional journey from victim to survivor to thriver. The parts that require someone who's lived through betrayal and come out stronger. I think about all the women who have written to us, sharing stories of husbands who cheat, partners who lie, men who treat love like a game with no consequences. I think about daughters like Sarah, trusting and loyal and blind to the predators who target exactly those qualities. How would we structure it? Alternating chapters. Your voice, then mine. Your strategies, then my healing process. Your justice, then my peace. And the goal? To create a roadmap for women who refuse to accept that betrayal is just something they have to endure. To show them that there are options besides forgive and forget and suffer in silence. Options that might include industrial adhesive and public humiliation. Options that include appropriate consequences delivered with surgical precision. I look at my daughter, this brilliant, strong, beautiful woman who has transformed her own destruction into a blueprint for other women's liberation. And feel the kind of pride that comes from watching someone you love discover their purpose. Yes, I say simply, yes. Yes, I'll co-author the book with you. Yes, I'll share our strategies with women who need them. Yes, I'll help you turn our story into a survival guide for anyone brave enough to demand better. Sarah hugs me with the fierce joy of someone whose dreams are coming true in real time. There's one more thing, she says, pulling back to look at me. I want to dedicate the book to Jason. To Jason Matthews, whose spectacular failure to be a decent human being gave us the opportunity to discover who we really are when we stop making excuses for people who don't deserve them. I laugh. The kind of laughter that comes from recognizing perfect irony. He'll hate that.
Good.
Let him hate it. Let him know that his betrayal became the foundation for other women's empowerment. Let him understand that his story is being told as a cautionary tale in bookstores across America. And if he tries to stop publication, with what legal team? With what financial resources? Besides, we're not using his real name, and everything we're describing is either a matter of public record or our own personal experience. He could try to argue defamation by claiming that our fictional account of a man who betrays his sick wife makes him look bad. He'd have to admit to being that man in order to prove we're writing about him. My lawyer's mind appreciates the elegance of this legal trap. Jason would have to confess to being an adulterer and fraud in order to claim we're damaging his reputation by calling him an adulterer and fraud. You've thought this through. I've learned from the best strategic mind I know. The doorbell rings downstairs, Harrison arriving early to help with party preparations, the way a good partner does. I should go let him in, I say, reaching for the blue dress. Mom, thank you. For everything. For protecting me. For teaching me. For showing me what real strength looks like. Thank you for surviving. For thriving. For becoming the kind of woman who turns her pain into power. I learned that from you too.
No, sweetheart.
You learned that from yourself. I just provided the example. 2 hours later, our house is full of people who matter, friends, neighbors, chosen family gathered to celebrate not just our anniversary in Santa Barbara, but our transformation into women who refuse to be diminished by other people's failures. Harrison raises his glass for a toast, his eyes finding mine across the room with the warmth of a man who has learned to appreciate a woman's complexity rather than fear it. To Mara and Sarah, he says, for proving that the best revenge is a life well lived, and that some stories get better when you decide to rewrite them. To mothers and daughters who protect each other, Victoria adds. To women who refuse to be victims, Ashley chimes in, holding her son, who has grown into a beautiful toddler with his father's eyes but his mother's gentle spirit. To justice served with precision, Dr. Martinez contributes, raising her wine glass. To new beginnings at any age, I say finally, looking around at faces that represent everything I've learned about choosing your family wisely. We drink to the sunset and the future and the satisfaction of a story that ends with the right people winning and the wrong people learning and justice served with grace and intelligence. Later, as guests begin to leave and Sarah starts the pleasant work of cleaning up after a successful party, I sit on the terrace with Harrison and watch stars appear over the Pacific. Happy anniversary, he says, taking my hand. Thank you. For everything. for being patient with a woman who needed time to trust again, for seeing strength where other men might see danger. For the record, I find your capacity for strategic thinking incredibly attractive. Even the illegal parts? Especially the illegal parts. I lean back in my chair and consider the strange journey that brought me to this moment, from widow to warrior to woman in love again, all in the space of 18 months. Harrison, I say carefully, there's something you should know about the book Sarah and I are writing. What's that? We're not just sharing our story as inspiration. We're sharing our methods as instruction. Meaning we're going to teach other women how to ensure that betrayal has consequences. How to make certain that cheating husbands and faithless partners and men who think they can discard women without penalty learn otherwise. That sounds potentially dangerous. It sounds potentially necessary. Harrison considers this while watching dolphins play in the moonlit waves. Will you teach them about industrial adhesive specifically? We'll teach them about creative problem-solving, strategic thinking, and the importance of proportional consequences. What they do with that information is up to them. And if some of them take your lessons too far, if some of them cross lines you wouldn't cross, then they'll learn that actions have consequences too. The same lesson everyone else needs to learn. Fair enough. He squeezes my hand. Just promise me you won't demonstrate any more techniques on me if I ever disappoint you. Harrison, darling, you're not the kind of man who would ever require that level of education. How can you be sure? Because you're the kind of man who asks questions like that. Men who worry about disappointing the women they love rarely do. And men who don't worry about it? I think about Jason Matthews, wherever he is tonight, probably still convinced that he was the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of his own destruction. Men who don't worry about it learn to worry about it. I say simply, through methods involving industrial adhesive, through whatever methods prove most educational. Harrison laughs and pulls me closer, and I rest my head on his shoulder while contemplating the strange and wonderful reality of being 63 years old and more dangerous than I've ever been in my life. Some women break when life betrays them. Others learn to break life back. And a few special ones learn to teach other women the difference between the two. My name is Mara Hart. I am 63 years old. I have silver hair and pearl necklaces, and I am about to publish a book that will teach women across America that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is make sure the people who hurt you understand exactly what that hurt costs. The book comes out next spring. Jason Matthews, wherever he is, should probably start preparing himself for the consequences of becoming a cautionary tale. After all, some lessons are too important to learn only once. And there you have it, beautiful souls. The complete story of Mara Hart, a 63-year-old woman who refused to let her daughter be broken by a faithless man. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about reclaiming your power, about understanding that your age is your advantage, not your limitation. If this story resonated with you, if you see yourself in Mara or Sarah, if you've ever felt underestimated or overlooked, then our book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is written for you. It's filled with real strategies, real wisdom, and real hope for women who are ready to stop being victims and start being victors. The link is in the description box. Click it, buy it, and start writing your own comeback story. Remember, your story isn't over until you say it's over. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and remember that the best revenge is always a life well lived. Until next time, stay strong, stay smart, and never underestimate the power of a woman who has decided she's had enough.